Konnichiwa, Crocodile Army. I just got back from 11 days in Tokyo for work, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I learned a lot about the country from both a business culture and general culture perspective, with the help of my business contacts and also a friend of mine who's lived in Tokyo for 10 years, and is fluent in Japanese. Having friends around the world is a very good thing. Speaking of friends in Tokyo, if you live in the vicinity and want to meet up with me, you'll get your chance in May because Mrs. Zaunstar and I are going there on vacation, a trip that coincidentally had been planned since long before this work trip had been planned. Just leave a comment or send me a PM and tell me where you are, and we should be able to get together and have some ramen that does not come in a styrofoam container. If you live in Japan, you should already know that ramen isn't supposed to come with flavor packets. While we're on the subject of food, despite the waistlines of Japanese people being noticeably slimmer than in America on average, there's a rich food culture in Japan, and the quality is top-notch, even with prices not much more than the US, and definitely cheaper than Europe. If you don't eat sushi because your local place isn't great, I highly recommend you try it again in Tokyo. Start with some tuna or salmon, and if you like that, order something more adventurous in addition to it, like octopus, squid, or something with a quail egg on it. They certainly do sushi rolls in Japan, but sashimi, which is just plain cuts of incredibly fresh fish, like it was swimming less than 24 hours ago fresh, is the more traditional Japanese way of eating raw fish. I enjoy both types, and the huge fish auction in Tokyo supplies these shops, so you really can't find it any fresher. Tempura is also excellent, as well as yakisoba, okonomiyaki, and lots more. If you like sake, you're in luck because they have lots of it, and a lot of it is so good that you can drink it like water, except water doesn't make your legs wobbly after you stand up from a meal. For those of you used to hot sake, keep in mind that that's usually reserved for very cold days and for the cheap stuff. Have some good sake at least once while you're there. Japanese people are, as a general rule, very polite. They're not going to make a scene about much of anything, and in business it's the same way. The Japanese people I worked with were so polite that I started joking with one of them to stop saying sorry all the time. It turns out that this is very common because many Japanese people will know sorry but not excuse me, because sorry is the literal translation of osemisen, which is used for excuse me in Japanese, or something like that. Business culture in general can be very formal, but this differs greatly depending on the company. Clothing can differ a fair amount, but I did notice that not a single person wore even slightly brightly colored clothing in a business environment. The Japanese business card exchange is a ritual like no other, and can be the source of some anxiety, even if you're expecting it. Before any business is done, you present your business cards to each other with both hands, written side facing the person you're meeting. Read it or pretend to read it if it's in Japanese and you can't read it, and place it in your business card holder or on the table in front of you. Do not just immediately put it in your pocket or put it into a bag, because that's considered rude. Like all customs in Japan, though, if you're a foreigner, they do not expect you to know all this, so don't get anxious about it. Just make an attempt. Japanese culture is very detail-oriented when it comes to all things related to work, and you'll note that the trains are nearly always on time. I don't think I had to wait more than 5 minutes for a train at any time of the day anywhere in Tokyo, but the last trains on most lines leave around midnight, and cabs are pretty expensive, so keep that in mind when you're out at night at the bars or singing karaoke, which, yes, they really do enjoy. There are many different styles of karaoke bar, and some even provide female companionship. And no, that's not a euphemism for something else. They really are just there to clap for you and give you encouragement while you sing, or talk to the people who are not singing at the moment. You can kick that up to another level at the hostess clubs or the red light district, but you'll need to research that on your own. One thing I did learn on this trip is the stereotype of Japanese businessmen being very polite and proper during the day and then going wild in the evenings sometimes is true. Going wild usually constitutes drinking too much sake and joking or singing very loudly. Another interesting cultural difference you may notice is that staring is not as frowned upon in Japan as it is in most countries. You may find someone staring at you on a train, and that person may be someone of the opposite sex. This happened to me a couple times. The problem for you is the person staring at you might be staring because they think you're attractive, or it could be because they think you're being rude, or because they think you're interesting, or just because you're a foreigner and they wonder where you're from. or many other different reasons. Which is it? Well, I never found out, because Japanese people don't normally strike up any kind of conversation with strangers, although they'll give it a shot if you approach them. And even if you wanted to, English is not widely spoken, at least not to the point where you can carry on a conversation. But keep in mind that they can often understand English better than they can speak it. Many have studied it at least a little, but the skill level is extremely varied, so don't let that surprise you. I could probably make 3 5-minute videos about Japanese culture, but after 11 days I am far from an expert, so I'll leave it here with a picture of me in front of a life-sized Gundam robot. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto.